Marcus Chen had been waiting at the upscale cafe for 47 minutes, nursing his third cup of coffee and contemplating the poor life choices that had led him to agree to an interspecies blind date. The galactic dating initiative had seemed like a joke when his sister signed him up, but here he was, the only human in an establishment filled with beings from across the known galaxy. His datapad buzzed. Another apology from his date Seraphina Drakmor, a Draken female from the Crimson Reaches. She was running late. Again, Marcus sighed, leaving enough credits on the table to cover his drinks, plus a generous tip. He was done. 3 strikes and you're out. Even in intergalactic dating, he was halfway to the door when it burst open with enough force to rattle the crystalline windows. Every head in the cafe turned toward the entrance, and conversations died mid-sentence. She was magnificent and absolutely filthy. Seraphina Drakmor stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her scales, which should have gleamed crimson and gold according to her profile, were caked with thick, brown mud that dripped onto the polished floor. Her wings, folded against her back, were similarly plastered. Dirt streaked her elegant snout, and her amber eyes blazed with what looked like embarrassment and defiance in equal measure. The motor D, a prissy Velusian with 4 arms, recoiled in horror. "Madam, you cannot." I know. Seraphine's voice was a rich contralto that carried easily across the silent room. "I'm looking for Marcus Chen, human, this tall." She held a muddy claw at approximately Marcus's height. Marcus's feet had frozen to the spot. He should leave. This was clearly a disaster. But something about the way she stood there proud, despite the mud, unapologetic yet obviously embarrassed, made him raise his hand. "That's me." Her eyes locked onto his, and relief flooded her features. She tried to approach, but the motor D physically blocked her path with all 4 arms spread wide. "Absolutely not. Look at the state of you. This is a respectable establishment. Let her through." Marcus heard himself say, returning to his table. "Sir, I must protest." I said let her through. Marcus met the motor D's shocked gaze steadily. "She's my date." Seraphina navigated through the maze of tables, leaving muddy footprints on the pristine floor. Other patrons pulled back their chairs and belongings as if she carried a plague. A Zorathian couple actually got up and left, muttering about typical human standards. She sat across from Marcus, and the chair groaned under her weight and the additional burden of wet mud. Up close, he could see scrapes on her scales and what looked like burn marks on her shoulder. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice quieter now. "I know this is what happened," Marcus interrupted. She blinked, clearly having prepared a different conversation. "What, the mud? The burns? What happened?" Seraphine's claws clicked nervously on the table, leaving small mud prints. "You don't want to know. Most humans, they don't really care about the answer. They just see the mess and try me." She studied his face for a long moment, those amber eyes searching for something. Whatever she found must have satisfied her, because she leaned back and began. "I was on my way here, taking the scenic route through the verdant district, because I was nervous and wanted to calm down. Then I heard screaming." She paused, glancing at the other patrons who were still staring. "There was a transport accident. A family hauler carrying Zelian colonists, you know, the small furry ones, had crashed into one of the canal bridges. The whole thing was sinking, and the parents were trapped in the front compartment. 3 younglings in the back, already underwater." Marcus leaned forward. "You went in. The emergency services were still 10 minutes out. Zillions can't swim there from a desert world. The younglings would have drowned." She said it matter-of-factly, as if there had been no choice at all. "The mud is from the canal bottom. The burns are from cutting through the cockpit. The power cells were damaged and sparking. The family, safe, all 5 of them." A small, proud smile crossed her muddy snout. "The younglings were terrified, clinging to the ceiling breathing pocket. I had to get the parents out first so they wouldn't see me extract their children. Drakons. We look like monsters from Zelian mythology. Didn't want to traumatize them more than necessary." Marcus sat back, a smile growing on his face. Around them, he noticed the other patrons were listening to now, their expressions shifting from disgust to something else. "So, you saved 5 lives, and still came to our date." Seraphine's scales flushed darker beneath a mudder Draken blush. "I almost didn't. I mean, look at me. I tried to find somewhere to clean up, but everywhere was closed for the 7th Moon Festival, and I couldn't go home because I lived clear across the city, and I was already so late." She trailed off, looking down at her muddy claws. "I thought maybe you'd still be here, that maybe you'd understand, or at least let me explain before walking out. Most males wouldn't have waited this long. Most males are idiots," Marcus said simply. He stood up, extending his hand. "Come on. She looked at his offered hand with confusion. "What? There's a fountain in the courtyard behind the cafe. Let's get some of that mud off you. Then we're going to that noodle cart on the corner, the one run by the Tarandrakan fusion couple. Their food is amazing. Nobody cares what you look like. And frankly, this place is too stuffy anyway." Serafina stared at his hand, then at his face. Slowly, carefully, she placed her muddy claw in his palm. Her scales were warm beneath the cold mud, and he could feel the slight tremor of her claw's nervousness, he realized, not the aftermath of heroism. As they walked toward the exit, the cafe remained silent. Then, from the back corner, someone began to clap. A human woman, dining with what looked like her Centaurian partner. Others joined in, not everyone, but enough. By the time they reached the door, a respectable applause followed them out. In the courtyard, under the light of 3 moons and surrounded by bioluminescent flowers, Marcus helped Serafina wash the mud from her scales. The water revealed the crimson and gold he'd seen in her profile, but they were marked with the silver scars of someone who'd lived a full life. "Why did you stay?" she asked as the last of the mud swirled away. "You were leaving. I saw you at the door." Marcus smiled, remembering the moment he'd turned around. "Because you burst through that door looking like you'd wrestled a mudkraken, and the first thing you did was look for me. Not apologize to the restaurant, not worry about the stairs you were looking for me. And then," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "then I saw your eyes. You had the eyes of someone who'd just done something that mattered, something hard and right, and refused to let it make you give up on something else that mattered. A blind date mattered that much. Maybe not the date itself, but showing up mattered. Keeping your word mattered. You could have sent a message canceling, said something came up. That would have been reasonable. Instead, you showed up covered in mud because you said you would be here." Seraphine's laugh was like warm thunder. "Humans, you're all completely insane. You know that." "So I've been told." Marcus offered his arm. "Noodles, noodles," she agreed, threading her arm through his as they walked toward the streetcar, leaving the upscale cafe and its judgmental patrons behind. Marcus reflected on humanity's reputation in the galaxy. Humans were known for many things: stubbornness, adaptability, an alarming tendency to befriend anything that didn't immediately try to kill them, and sometimes even the things that did. But perhaps most importantly, humans had a knack for recognizing what truly mattered. Not the mud on someone's scales, but the reason it got there. Not the disrupted plans, but the character revealed in the disruption. The noodles were excellent. The conversation was better. And when Serafina smiled, really smiled, without the nervousness or embarrassment, her scales caught the streetlights and blazed like living fire. 3 months later, Marcus would tell his sister that she'd been right about the Galactic Dating Initiative. 6 months after that, he'd be introducing Serafina to his parents, who would immediately ask about the scars on her scales and spend the whole evening listening to her stories. But that night, sitting at a humble noodle cart under alien stars, sharing a meal with someone who'd literally moved mountains to keep a promise, Marcus knew one thing with certainty: humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, their stubbornness, or even their crazy creativity. It was their ability to see the person beneath the mud and recognize a hero when they met one, even on a blind date.